Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to Study Capital YouTube platform. My name is Atul Mishra. I am your mentor for CUET PG 2026 preparation. As we are doing some MCQs, this video is a continuation of that. And as I have already mentioned in some of the previous videos as well, we'll be taking few MCQs, but I will be talking about what are the other things that you can prepare around the question. These are the previous year questions or the questions that can be asked in your exam. That means with one question I'll be explaining things around it, and I'll be giving you certain other examples, other things that are related to it, which you can explore on your own as well. So without any delay, I think let's start this video. The first question is on your screen. It says, who suggested imitation also as a method in translation? Now when you think about this term imitation in terms of literary criticism, it starts from Plato. Plato says art is an imitation, that is why it should be banned from ideal republic. Aristotle responded to it. He says imitation is he accepted that art is an imitation, but he also says that imitation is a very natural thing for human being. It is very natural to imitate, that it is not problematic, and for on that basis art is not dangerous at all. He responds to it in his Poetics. You might be knowing that I referred to these two prominent critics. They have developed, especially Aristotle developed a theory of imitation based on it, which is further developed by Horace, Sidney and others. All came and all accepted that art is an imitation. They gave certain reasons to defend poetry, but that is not in translation. The question here asks imitation in the field of translation, right? And look at the options here: Pope, Johnson, Tytler, Dryden. Now out of these four people, if you remember reading neoclassical period, especially the Restoration as well as the first half of the 18th century, the St. Augustus period or age of Pope, you know that these are the people who were doing a lot of translation. Dryden is a very famous translator as well. Johnson translated some of the works by Juvenal. He has written certain juvenile poetries, and he has translated some of the works as well, edited some of the works as well. Pope was also there. He was also working in translation. So these are the famous people who were involved in translation. This question comes from the unit of your syllabus, which is translation studies. Now if you look at the syllabus, it talks about major authors, major events, major people associated with it, as well as now we know that we also need to look at the terminology of translation studies. This is a question which, if you read about translation studies, it starts from, there are obviously classical translations, there are biblical translations, adaptations. So first you need to differentiate between what is an adaptation, how it is different from translation, how translation is different from transcreation or sequel, prequel. These are the basic things of translation studies. Then when you enter into certain studies, right, the theorists, you'll find that in literary translations there are biblical translations. A lot of them starts from Wycliffe, Tyndale, Coverdale, and I can name you 10-20 famous translations from where they have already asked so many questions in your exam. But particularly from the Restoration period, a lot of things changed in drama, a lot of things changed in literature, particularly from the Restoration period. Translation became very important event there. Dryden was involved in translation. He talked about how, like, there are translations which are literal, there are translations which are sense based. Right, it is very obvious. I say "Main aam khata hu," there is a literal translation to it as well. And if I am translating this for an American person or for someone who does not know what is aam, what is mango, then I will try to think about the sense, how it should be conveyed. So there are multiple ways through translations have been done by many people, and there are certain ways to do it. There are certain things that we add in translation, certain things that we eliminate. All of these things it's explained by Dryden. Dryden was one of the first one in the Restoration period who started talking about it. He's also the one who talked about imitation as a method that can be used in translation. So that is an interesting question. I hope you'll read about it, and then you'll realize that it's the lot that these people offer. So he actually came up with three methods of translation. You can see you might be knowing paraphrasing. We all do that. So there is metaphrase, there is paraphrase, and then there is imitation. Metaphrase means word for word translation. I said, "मैं आम खाता हूँ." You translated it to English. I eat mango. That is word for word translation. It is metaphrase. Paraphrase where sense is communicated, right? आपने बहुत बार किया होगा कि आपको एक 1000 word का कोई reading आपने किया and you paraphrase and you explain it in 200 words. That is paraphrasing. You just explain the sense of the text, what it is about, right? Some flexibility is there. You are not bothered with word for word translation. And then there is imitation, which gives a translator kind of a freedom. You can coin new terms, you can add new things, you can also eliminate them. एक ड्राइडन का बहुत famous quote है, right, about this thing. He mentioned ki if I am doing a translation, I am paraphrasing it. I don't know exactly the what the quote is, but I remember reading it. And Dryden talks about how I am adding few things in the translation and also I am eliminating them. So he was giving a justification of it in one of the quotes where he said, if I am adding few things, the writer might have added those things if he is living today. And if I am eliminating some, writer might have realized that these are the things we should not talk about, and that is why he might have eliminated these things in the time in which I am writing. So he gave this justification. It's a very good justification about how what kind of translation you like. It is whether it is word to word, sense to sense, whether you are adding something or you are eliminating it. So that kind of a flexibility when a translator enjoys, and obviously with a cultural turn in translation studies that happened in 1970, Susan Bassnett talks about it, then that kind of flexibility emerged. But Dryden, writing in 17th century without any theoretical framework to support, he talked about these things. So imitation as in kind of a freedom that gives a writer an edge to do something creative. Obviously you are moving away beyond a kind of a source text which can be read in different ways. So that's a good thing when you are moving away from the source text or not. Up to the reader, it's very debatable, but there is a flexibility in it that Dryden likes it. Look at the second question, and this is a question from literary criticism, right? Intentional fallacy is what you read when you think about new criticism. Tension in poetry, again new criticism. The language of paradox, it's again new criticism. 7 types of ambiguity, that is also a concept that you read in new criticism. That means there are 4 terms. Obviously this is a question from new criticism, which can be a part of modern criticism in your syllabus, not directly mentioned, but modern criticism entails new criticism as well. There are terms like intentional fallacy, affective fallacy. You might have heard pathetic fallacy. If you have read Matthew Arnold talks about 3 estimates: historical, personal and real. There he defined historical and personal as fallacies. So कई बार ये phrases आपने सुने होंगे, right? That means these are famous things. नहीं पढ़ा है तो you'll have to read about it. In this question, there is intentional fallacy, right? What is the intention of an author when he is writing it? Suppose you are reading a text in 20th century, Shakespeare, and can you know the intention of Shakespeare? Shakespeare is no more today, right? So if you are judging a text based on the intention of an author, you are reading a text in 21st century, Tempest, and you are saying this is what author meant, right? This is problematic. Why? Because this is fallacy. Why? Because you can't know the intention of an author. He is no more today, right? And the fact that there are many other ways through which the text can also be interpreted. There is a reader's response to a text that can also be a good criteria to know what the text offers to you. That is why intention of an author could be considered as an intentional fallacy. That is why it is fallacy. On the other hand, this is Wimsatt and Beardsley. They coined this term in their text called verbal icon, very famous in new criticism. You will be you probably know that. Tate, Alan Tate, again American new critics, talk about tension, intention and extension, what a writer intended and what as an author, what as a reader we have taken from that text. Idea of tension in poetry, again new criticism idea. Clint Brooks, the one who wrote Understanding Poetry, Understanding Fiction in collaboration with R.P. Warren. There's a question that they have asked in previous exams as well. And he is the one who is famous for talking about paradox, irony, heresy of paraphrase. These are certain terms that he explained in his very famous text, Unbrought Un. So he talked about the paradox. There's an essay that he wrote, The Language of Paradox, where he talked about 2 things, paradox and irony. Now, if you have read the neoclassical literature, Alexander Pope and others, you know they are famous for using irony. If you have read romantics, especially Wordsworth, there are certain examples of paradox as well. In this essay, he talked about how predominantly paradox is present in the romantic poetry, irony is present in the neoclassical poetry, but you may find references of paradox in the Pope writing, in the neoclassical writing, as well as elements of irony in the romantic poetry as well. So a very interesting essay actually, that is a part of New Criticism, and you can read it. Then there is 7 types of ambiguity. It is by Impson. Once in the NET examination, they have also asked the publishing year of the text called 7 types of ambiguity. कैसे layers of meaning होती है किसी text के अंदर. It is Impson, it is not I.A. Richards. I.A. Richards came up with the idea of close reading. तो ये सारे न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म के टर्म्स हैं. जब आप थ्योरी पढ़ेंगे तो इनके बारे में शायद आपने सुन रखा होगा या आप इनको एक्सप्लेन करेंगे. Now look at this question. Who among the following is not a member of the movement poets? मैं जब भी मॉडर्न एज के बारे में बात करता हूँ या पोस्ट मॉडर्न के बारे में बात करता हूँ, स्पेशली 20th सेंचुरी, आपको उनको मूवमेंट वाइज पढ़ना होता है. हर डिकेड में बहुत सारे मूवमेंट है. 1910 से 20 के बीच आप देखो, देयर इज सरलिज्म, देयर इज दादादिज्म, देयर इज हार्लेम रेनेसांस, देयर इज इमेजिज्म. 1920s पढ़ोगे, there is lost generation. 1930s there is Auden group poetry, new left poetry. 1940s you'll read about new apocalypse poetry. 1950s you'll read about the movement poetry, the confessional poetry, the what to say, angry young men movement, kitchen sink drama. You move ahead, there is Martian poetry in 60s. हर 10 साल में आपको कई सारे movements, कई सारे groups, कलेक्टिव राइटर्स के ग्रुप मिलेंगे. मूवमेंट पोइट्री भी उसी एस्पेक्ट में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कलेक्शन ऑफ ग्रुप्स हैं, राइटर्स हैं जो कि साथ में पोइट्री लिख रहे हैं. उन्होंने कई सारी एंथोलॉजीज निकाली हैं. बहुत से क्वेश्चंस आपके एग्जाम में आते हैं, एंथोलॉजी बेस्ड आता है. एक क्वेश्चन जो कि 1950s के मूवमेंट से बहुत फेमस है, दे विल गिव यू 4 नेम्स आउट ऑफ विच, ऐसे भी होता है एक ऑप्शन में 4 लोगों के नाम होगा और एक कोई पेयर आपको चूज करना पड़ेगा जो एक मूवमेंट से एसोसिएट है. जितने भी मूवमेंट के मैंने नाम लिए, शायद कुछ भूल रहा होगा. क्यूबिज्म 1910 से 20 के बीच में आया, कुछ आर्टिस्टिक मूवमेंट भी है. तो वो सारे मूवमेंट्स में कौन से लोग मेजर हैं, कौन से बुक्स हैं, कौन से टर्म्स कॉइन हुए हैं, किसने टर्म कॉइन किया. अगर एंथोलॉजीज है तो कौन सी एंथोलॉजीज है, उन एंथोलॉजीज को किसने डेवलप किया. जैसे न्यू लाइंस और मूवमेंट पोइट्री करके एक एंथोलॉजी है मूवमेंट ग्रुप से भी, किसने उस एंथोलॉजी को एडिट किया, ये भी क्वेश्चन नेट एग्जाम में आया हुआ है. तो सीयूटी में भी आ सकता है. ये एक बेसिक क्वेश्चन है जो हर टाइप के मूवमेंट से पूछा जाता है. राइट, यहाँ पे भी देखो, थॉम गन, किंग्सले एमिस, फिलिप लार्सन, कैरोलिन डफी, 4 एग्जांपल्स हैं. अगर आपने एक टर्म है पोएट लॉरिएटशिप, राइट, ड्राइडन वाज द फर्स्ट हु बिकेम पोएट लॉरिएट. देयर इज अ चेन ऑफ राइटर्स फ्रॉम देयर. शैडविल वाज देयर, राइट. When, for example, Walter Scott declined to become a poet laureate, there you have Southey who became poet laureate. Then there is Wordsworth, then there is Tennyson. Currently Simon Armitage is a poet laureate, and that is also a question that was asked once in the CUT exam. So poet laureateship is also a very interesting arena, like by biblical translations. Caroline Duffy is famous because she is the first lesbian poet laureate there, and it's an early writer, contemporary writer. It's not she's not a 1950s writer. So Thom Gunn, Davy, Wayne, ये सब Kingsley Amis, Philip Larkin, ये सब क्या है, मूवमेंट पोइट्री के पार्ट है. मूवमेंट पोइट्री क्या है हम बाद में बात कर सकते हैं, आप खुद से पढ़ सकते हैं. विल बी टेकिंग इट लेटर क्योंकि और भी क्वेश्चन सबको करने हैं. सो इट्स एन इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग दैट यू कैन रिमेंबर. नाउ लुक एट दिस क्वेश्चन. Which of the following text of Kalidas in translation was received with an undisputed applause by the Germans? Now you know, जो कालिदास है, इनका जो टेक्स्ट था विज्ञान शाकुंतलम was the first text to be translated in English, any Indian language text which was translated in English by Jones for the first time. तो कालिदास के टेक्स्ट इसीलिए बहुत फेमस है. लास्ट ईयर आपके एग्जाम में कालिदास से क्वेश्चन आया, 3-4 फीमेल कैरेक्टर्स का नाम मेंशन था और पूछा कि कौन सी फीमेल हीरोइन कालिदास में नहीं है. तो कालिदास इन जनरल एज ए राइटर, इनके जो ट्रांसलेशंस हैं, इनके जो हीरोइंस हैं, जो स्टोरीज हैं, अभिज्ञान शकुंतलम की फॉर एग्जांपल, एटलीस्ट ये सब पढ़ना आपके लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. इंडियन क्लासिकल राइटिंग में 2 ही 4 राइटर्स हैं जिनको हम पढ़ते हैं. कालिदास इज वन ऑफ देम, सो ही इज particularly very important for exam. German writers, Goethe and others, have liked one of his texts and they have talked about it in great detail. I hope you know the answer already. It is Sakuntala, Abhigyan Shakuntalam, which was translated for the very first time by William Jones in 18th century. And then Schlegel, Goethe and others, they have talked about it in detail in Germany. हम बाद में इसके बारे में बात करेंगे. एक और क्वेश्चन यहाँ पे देखिए, लैंग्वेज गेम्स. जब आप मॉडर्निज्म पढ़ते हैं और मॉडर्निज्म से पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म की तरफ टर्न करते हैं तो आप लियो टॉड को पढ़ते हैं, राइट? जस्ट अ सेकेंड। लियो टॉड सेड postmodernism is an incredulity towards meta narrative, grand narratives को रिजेक्ट करके लिटिल narratives के ऊपर फोकस करते हैं, राइट? हैबरमास को क्रिटिसाइज करते हुए देयर इज simulacra, simulation, hyperreality by Baudrillard. So बहुत से टर्म हम पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म में जाके पढ़ते हैं, बहुत से थ्योरिस्ट को वहाँ पे पढ़ते हैं। वहीं पे एक कॉन्सेप्ट आता है लैंग्वेज गेम्स का। एक बहुत फेमस एग्जाम्पल है जो एक बहुत फेमस टीचर भी है, यूट्यूब पे आपको मिलेंगे, और उन्होंने कई बार इस एग्जाम्पल को मेंशन किया है इन देयर डिफरेंट कोर्स टॉकिंग अबाउट मॉडर्निज्म। इन वन ऑफ द वीडियोस दैट इज आल्सो फ्रॉम IIT, देयर इज वन प्रोफेसर फ्रॉम IIT कानपुर, ही टॉक्स अबाउट इट एंड ही सेज देयर इज महात्मा गांधी फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एंड व्हेन महात्मा गांधी सेज ब्रिंग द चेंज, you think about change in society, but when a conductor, bus conductor says bring the change, you think about coins. So the term is same, you're saying the same thing, bring the change, but you change the context and there is a different meaning, right? Brooks also, when he talks about heresy of paraphrase, he says you can't just paraphrase poetry because it is very contextual, right? So there is a context based term. There are a lot of terms that are context based and they're coined. Language game is also very similar to that. Like every game, they have different rule. Language also has different rules in different contexts. You change the context, meaning will be different. This is a term which is a very interesting term which you can use to understand modern and postmodern literature as well. Language games coined by Wittgenstein, right? Modernism का part है, आपके एग्जाम में आ सकता है। ये देखिए एक क्वेश्चन है, a work that imitates and parodies the Spanish writer Cervantes' Don Quixote. You know, Cervantes is a very important writer. He was the influential writer who inspired Fielding to write novels. So Henry Fielding has written a play based on Don Quixote. Richardson, Fielding, the four pillars of novels in 18th century, Smollett, Sterne, they all have talked about Don Quixote's text, but there is a counterpart to it. There is a text called the Female Quixote, and there is a text called Quixote as well by Salman Rushdie, which is also a parody of Don Quixote. Very recently, text 2020 के बाद आया. You can refer to the bibliography of Salman Rushdie from Wikipedia, वहाँ पे आपको मिलेगा. पर ये text क्या है कि imitate भी करता है और parody भी करता है Cervantes का Don Quixote. The text Female Quixote, it is by a very famous person of 18th century. This is Charlotte Leno writing this text. So early novel series में parody आपको देखने को मिलेगा 1752 में. ये जो options आप देख रहे हैं, Anne Finch and Radcliffe, फ्रांसिस बर्ने, ये बहुत इन्फ्लुएंशियल राइटर्स हैं. वर्जीनिया वुल्फ ने इन सब के बारे में, एटलीस्ट 3 के बारे में अपने टेक्स्ट के अंदर रूम ऑफ वंस ओन के अंदर बात की है. तो ये सबके जो वर्क्स हैं, एटलीस्ट फ्रांसिस बर्ने मदर ऑफ फिक्शन बोला है वर्जीनिया वुल्फ ने अपने एस्से में. तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट राइटर है जिनके वर्क्स ने जेन ऑस्टिन को इंस्पायर किया है. सो दीज आर इंपॉर्टेंट पीपल. जस्ट अ सेकेंड. Yes, so sorry. So these are important writers. Actually, if you read, when you think about what to say, Gothic fiction, तो ये सब important writers हैं, female writers, 18th century, 19th century, जिनके नाम, इनके work को जानना बहुत जरूरी है. Look at this question. Name the Roman theoretician who wrote Institutio Oratoria that emphasizes the need for translation to be part of a young man's education to improve his oratorical skills. देखिए, it's a very important question from translation studies, जहाँ पे major authors, major critics को पढ़ते हैं. तो एक critic है, एक theorist है, जिसने Roman theorist है, जिसने text लिखा Oratoria, art of speaking, Institutio Oratoria, और वहाँ पे बताया कि it is very important, translation is very important for young man's education because it improves the oratory skills, right? So this is obviously Quintilian. आप वर्क पढ़ा होगा अपने Institutio Oratoria, तो पढ़ेंगे उसमें. ये भी ट्रांसलेशन स्टडीज का क्वेश्चन है, ट्रांसलेशन के थ्योरिस्ट का क्वेश्चन है, और रोमन राइटर, रोमन थ्योरिशियन है. दैट मींस बहुत अर्ली ऐसे ट्रांसलेशन प्रैक्टिसेस के बारे में, थ्योरिज्म के बारे में आपको पढ़ना होगा. लॉन्जाइनस लिटरेरी स्टडीज के लिए फेमस है. यू नो ऑन द सबलाइम, 5 sources of sublimity, 4 sources of false sublimity, Placer principle, writing in Roman time frame and talking about Placer as an aesthetic, end of a poetry, which itself is very, unique because people around him, Horace talks about importance of instruction, Aristotle before him talks about importance of instruction before pleasure, but Longinus was the one who focused upon principle of enjoyment, pleasure. That is why he is also the one whom James Scott called as the first romantic critic. Very important criticism में हम उनको पढ़ते हैं. There is Horace, there is Cicero. This text was written by Quintilian. तो आप जानते हैं बहुत famous. ऐसा नहीं कि translation theorist में केवल modern theorist के नाम आप पढ़ेंगे या केवल literary criticism पढ़ेंगे. बहुत सारे frameworks हैं, बहुत सारे theorists हैं जो continuously translation के बारे में बात करते हुए आए हुए हैं from a Roman period to today. So बहुत सारे major theorists हैं जिनके बारे में आपको पढ़ना होता है. Look at this question. Who among the following, this is a question for comparative theoreticians. So it says, who among the following comparative theoretician believe that by means of worldwide context, a harmonization was to ensue within the individual literatures. That is very interesting. पहले क्या था जब comparative literature नहीं था, जब translations नहीं होते थे या एक टेक्स्ट एक जगह के टेक्स्ट को आप दूसरे टेक्स्ट से कंपेयर करके नहीं पढ़ते थे, तो बहुत लिमिटेड स्पेस में रीडिंग होती थी. लेकिन when you have this ट्रांसलेशन इन प्रैक्टिस, जैसे आपको कोई भी हिंदी टेक्स्ट है, इफ योर मदर टंग इज नॉट हिंदी एंड इट इज ट्रांसलेटेड इनटू इंग्लिश, नाउ यू कैन रीड इट, राइट? सो इट इज फॉर वर्ल्ड टू रीड इट. सिमिलरली देयर आर लॉट ऑफ जर्मन टेक्स्ट, क्लासिकल टेक्स्ट, काफका को पढ़ते हो आप, इस सब को पढ़ते हो, यू हैव एक्सेस टू देम बिकॉज देयर इज अ ट्रांसलेशन, देयर इज अ कंपैरेटिव स्टडी पॉसिबल टुडे. सो दिस theoretician also said because of translation, because of this comparative method, now individual literature can be read widely as well. So who is the one? It is obviously Goethe, who is known as father of comparative literature as well, who talked about it in great detail. So सारे लोगों ने बहुत कुछ बोला है ट्रांसलेशन को लेके, और Goethe is one of them जिन्होंने इसके बारे में IT किया. So I will take one or two more examples. थोड़ा सा हटते हैं थ्योरी से, कंपैरेटिव ट्रांसलेशन से, कुछ लिटरेचर पे देखते हैं. क्वेश्चन आया हुआ क्वेश्चन है, देखिए क्या कह रहा है. कैंटरबरी टेल्स एक ऐसा टेक्स्ट, realist text of 14th century where you have three states, different states, people being recognized, used, people from chivalry, people from nobility, right, people from church, people from commoners, the working class people, as pilgrims, और क्या corruption है society के बारे में बताया गया. Canterbury Tales is a very very important text, right, और वहाँ पे 24 tales by 23 storytellers, different storytellers, the Knight's Tale, Pardoner Tale, Parson Tale, Nun Prioress Tale, some of the Wife of Bath's Tale. कुछ ऐसी टेल्स हैं जिसमें डायरेक्टली क्वेश्चन आपके एग्जाम में आते हैं, किसका मोरल क्या है, लेडी एग्नेल्टाइन का ब्रोच पे क्या लिखा हुआ था, हु इज द कैरेक्टर हु यूज बैक पाइप. ऐसे बहुत से क्वेश्चंस पौंडीचेरी यूनिवर्सिटी के कंपैरेटिव एग्जाम में आए हुए हैं, सीयूईटी में आए हुए हैं. लास्ट 2-3 साल से सीयूईटी में ऐसे क्वेश्चंस नहीं पूछ रहे, कैंटरबरी टेल्स से नहीं पूछे हैं, बट डजंट मीन कि इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. इट इज वन ऑफ the first text that you read in detail, other than if you have not read Beowulf. So in general it is very important because Chaucer converted East Midland dialect into English, and then he wrote this text, Canterbury Tales, in the 14th century. One of the first texts which is very very important after Legend of Good Woman. It is also written in heroic couplet, right? So बहुत बेसिक सा क्वेश्चन है. देखो आप, टेबर्टिन आपके दिमाग में रहता है, कुछ चीजें आप भूल जाते हो कि ये इन कहाँ पे था, whether it is in South Walk, it is in East Walk, it is in North Walk, or it is in West Walk. Now it is confusing, right? Because हम बहुत आसानी से बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन को देखते नहीं है और आगे बढ़ जाते हैं. तो आपको पता है, they are pilgrims, they are meeting at one place, they have decided that they will go on a pilgrimage next day, they will go together, 2 tales will be told while going, 2 tales while coming back, so everyone will tell 4 stories. So there has to be a 120 stories, but there are only 24. That means it is a fragmented text. You all know those things. You are also aware about the fact that the Chaucer is a writer of this text. He is also a narrator. He is also a narrator, and he is also one of the pilgrims. तो कौन से फाउंडेशनल फैक्ट इन्फॉर्मेशन में जो बेसिक चीजें हैं वो चली जाती हैं. स्टोरीज पढ़ते हैं तो विच टेल इज नोन एज हाई रोमांस टोल्ड इन हीरोइक कपलेट. इट्स अ क्वेश्चन फॉर द नाइट्स टेल. तो बेसिक स्टोरीज भी आपको पढ़नी होती हैं, और जब ये समझते हैं आप तो बेसिक चीज कहाँ पे मिले वही चला जाता है, और वहां से क्वेश्चन आपके एग्जाम में पूछ लिया, राइट? सो इट इज टबार्ट इन साउथ वॉक. ऑब्वियसली अगर आपने डिटेल में पढ़ा होगा तो पता चलेगा. इसी क्या एक्सप्लेन कर रहा है कि जितने भी टेक्स्ट आप पढ़ते हैं, बेसिक सेटिंग आपके लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. मैंने प्रीवियस वीडियोस में भी बात की है कि कितना इंपॉर्टेंट है किसी एज से किसी टेक्स्ट को पहचानना, सेटिंग से उस वर्क को पहचानना, इंपॉर्टेंट कैरेक्टर से उस वर्क को पहचानना. इन जनरल इट इज वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट टेक्स्ट. तो यहाँ पे शायद इतना इंपॉर्टेंट आपको नहीं लगे, लेकिन व्हेन यू एंटर इनटू द Renaissance or the neoclassical text or some of the texts from Romanticism or 20th century, you'll realize that it is very important for us to understand, to know at least the important characters, settings of famous text, canonical text in general. Canterbury Tales itself, it knows no introduction to the magnum opus of Chaucer, so it is also a very important text for now. From the last 2-3 years, they have not asked questions from the Canterbury Tales. This year, things can be different, and they can ask questions from Canterbury Tales as well. So you have to read, you have to know which character is, for example, defined as as fresh as month of May, or many other questions that can be framed from Canterbury Tales. I'll stop this video here. We'll be dealing with other MCQs in our upcoming classes. We are obviously we are running a batch for this preparation, for the CUET-PG preparation, and there we are discussing we will be discussing literary theory in detail, the way I have explained it to you. We are discussing currently a history of British English literature. We have already covered literary criticism, and we are going to revise in certain for the new batch very recently. So if you think that these are the things that matters to you, if you're preparing for CUET-PG 2026 seriously, then I will be waiting for you in the paid course batch. I hope you like this video, or even if you don't want to join the paid course, it's fine. Continue with our YouTube journey, and we will be solving certain MCQs here. We will be dealing with certain terms, theories in detail in this YouTube platform. So I hope you will be stay in touch. Thank you so much. Bye bye.